as an entry. So when I take a look at this, oops, sorry for that. So when I take a look at this, this clearly shows me how this kink, this unusual shape, was created, and it obviously has an issue. So directly, it's not possible to perform a right turn, so exit on the very first roundabout leg when coming from this direction. Sometimes it's a solution, sometimes there is no possibility because of some side constraints, and vehicles has to go all the way through and exit like this, or there could be a bypass lane somewhere at this location. But in any case, we would need to resolve this this problem. So what's happening here is that I'm going to look into resolving this problem, but I would like to return back to the design guidelines and talk a little bit more about it, because what you see is that our vehicle path is created, but then there's some kind of an offset used. So how do I define that offset? And this is defined in the vehicle, in the design guideline. If I continue looking into the further categories, you will see this defined. So first of all, we have the inscribed circle as a parameter of the roundabout. So this is the size of the roundabout, the inscribed circle diameter. This usually comes from the design guideline, from the publication, I would say. And for the single lane WB50 roundabout, this is the default diameter for the inscribed circle. The way how I calculate the circulatory roadway width, so this width of the roundabout, this lane width of the roundabout, is that I calculate the vehicle swept path, that's the gray area, and then I apply offsets from that. I apply 1 feet, 30 centimeters to the inside between the swept path and the roundabout apron. I apply 2 feet between the swept path and one lane and the other lane. Also 2 feet, 60 centimeters to from that side to the lane edge, and 3 feet, so 90 centimeters from the vehicle swept path and the outer outer edge of the roundabout or of the inscribed circle. So this is how we calculate the lane width of the roundabout. Then the footprint is not really an important part. This is just to allow you to add a little buffer zone to account for grading, just when in designing in plan view. But then you have certain settings for the legs. And if I just zoom out a little bit, I might be able to show a better picture for you. So I'm going to go like this. So when we generate vehicle movements and we generate a roundabout leg, what we do is that we define the path, how the vehicle enters the roundabout and how it exits. We don't define the curb edge. We don't say that this is going to be a 20-meter arc radius curb. What we define is that we define the radius for the center path of the vehicle, and based on that, and based on the design vehicle, we calculate the vehicle swept path. There's going to be an off tracking here, so to the inside of the circle of the curve, the rear end of the vehicle will tend to lean in more. And then, based on the calculated swept path, by applying an offset, we calculate the road edge. So the same goes for the outside. And when talking about the offsets, here are the offsets defined. So to the outside is going to be 2 feet, 60 centimeters. To the inside is going to be 1.5 meters. That results in this median as well. And the values are strange because this is a metric version of the US-based standard, which was originally defined in imperial units. So that's why you see these weird numbers. Then you can go ahead and define the lane width. So in Taurus, you basically have two possibilities. You can calculate the lane width based on the design vehicle, based on the vehicle path, or you can fix the lane width. And if you fix the lane width, then you can define them for the exit, the entry, and the median as well. These are just default values. You can always go back and modify them. Then we have settings for the road widenings. So when you approach, how much earlier do you start widening your road? And then further, more detailed settings. What if the curve, the vehicle approaches your design is not a single arc, but a dual arc? So this is going to be a leg by arc entry. So usually there's a smaller arc and there's a larger arc. Also, you could have a high-speed entry, which is an S-curve introduced to decrease down the speed of the vehicle. Then you have settings for the bypass lane. And then you have settings for the splitter island. So here is where the island would go and how the splitter island envelope would be calculated. And also settings for the crosswalk. Now, what I would like to show and highlight is that in Taurus, we do not calculate the islands. We calculate or we create the island envelope, which is an area where the island can fit. And you would be able to design your island based on your local settings or your local habits. So here, your island would be designed or would be calculated, would be created. So I'm just going to have just a very simple example here. So this is where your island would come, and obviously this is going to be an arc. And this is going to be an arc too, as well as that one too. So basically this is just to represent that we do not calculate the island as itself, because the island sometimes could be like this, or especially at exit maneuvers in order to account for larger vehicles with a bigger nose, maybe like this. This is the island envelope. But the envelope is the area where your vehicles, your design vehicles, do not go through. So let me then focus on this design and try to resolve the issues what we have. So at this area, I'm going to go ahead and turn off these vehicle maneuvers so that I can focus a little bit more on the design. And I will also go ahead and change the line weight a little bit more, so we have a better representation of this roundabout. So what I can do here, typically you would have a bypass lane because it's such a tight design. You could have a bypass lane, or you could have any kind of direct turn possibility here. So if I generated the roundabout. Now I would like to edit it. So at the top, you go to Edit Roundabout. You select the roundabout. And here you have a lot of possibilities how to edit this roundabout. At the top, you see the settings for the central island. So although I have used a default setting of 36.58 meter, because this came from my design guideline, I can change it. I can increase this to 40 meters. Okay, now my central island, my inscribed circle diameter has changed. This resulted in a slight change of the lane width, and this resulted in a change of the central island. And all the alignments, all the curves have been adjusted to that. So decreasing it down to 30, everything is adjusted to that. You see that the central island gets smaller, the truck apron gets pretty wide, and you have a very weird angle here. So probably I'm going to go with using 40 meters. This is one way of sizing your roundabout. The other way would be to choose the size of the central island. It's one way or the other because these are connected. If you choose the central island size, then based on the offsets and the vehicle path, the inscribed circle will be calculated. And the other way around, if you choose the inscribed circle diameter, we calculate you the vehicle path, we apply the offsets, and then the central island is calculated. Okay, a single remark here. This is an illustration for a dual lane roundabout. Obviously now we only have one single lane. So the offsets we use is this one from the path to the truck apron, and this one from the path to the outer side of the roundabout to the inscribed circle. So this is how you calculate the circular area of the roundabout, and you see you do have a feedback that based on these settings, the circulatory roadway width, so the lane width in the circulatory area, it's 5.44 meters. If you want to change this, you can change it, but if you choose a smaller number, then you probably didn't realize, but the design didn't change, and there's a red warning here. I cannot apply a tighter width or a narrower lane than the one necessary. I can, though, use a wider lane width. So this is now 6 meters. This is a little bit wider area, wider lane width. Or you can untick this and then just use the minimum, which is 5.44. Also, up here, you see some coordinates. There is the easting and the northing coordinate, and this is for the central of the roundabout inscribed circle. You can move this anytime. So I can pick location in the design and I can start moving it. And you see that all the all the edges are recalculated. So I could consider moving it a little bit to this direction. So the edges on the north east section make a little bit more sense. Then furthermore below here, you have settings to control mainly the apron. You can turn the apron on or off with this setting. The apron itself is calculated based on the vehicle swept path, and it's calculated to be almost 2.5 meters wide. However, if you want, you can turn off this behavior and just apply your own number, increasing it a little bit, 3 meters, maybe just more drastically, 4-meter wide apron. Okay, I would like this to be based on the vehicle path, so I turn this off, this behavior, and I ask Taurus to calculate the width for me based on that WB50 semi-trailer and the off-tracking, the swept path requirement of that. In the middle part, I will talk about this a little bit later. What I would like to do now is to focus on the lower part here on the toolbox. Here we have tools to add new roundabout legs, to delete a roundabout leg, or to edit a roundabout leg. Plus, we have other settings, other tools to replace a roundabout leg reference geometry. Maybe this is something I can show to you. Let's say for some reason we have changed our mind and this road is going to be dead straight. If I go back, edit the roundabout, I can replace the reference geometry. I don't need to delete the roundabout and create it again. I'm just going to select this roundabout leg and then pick the new alignment, and this is what it's going to be based on. Okay, I'm selecting it back to be based on that reference line. Now what I would like to do is to edit the roundabout leg, and for this I would need to click into one leg, and here I have a good number of options available. So first of all, I can choose whether it's going to be based or going to be according to the effective lane width method or the fixed lane width method. So the difference between this is the lane width in the straight section. It's going to be calculated based on the vehicle path or based on my fixed requirement. Would like to choose this to be based on the fixed lane width method. As you see, the design has changed. So if this is based on the fixed lane width, and I see an issue here in the drawing, as you see, our centerline alignment is not really positioned in the middle because the alignment I've picked, it was not a full polyline, so this is basically two objects. So I'm just going to use the pedit command and join these objects together, and then I'm probably going to apply a radius of maybe 50 meters between these two. And now if I go back to edit the roundabout, can replace the reference geometry, and now it's correctly positioned. So I just wanted to correct this to avoid any misconception. So what I have here is that I'm designing now according to the fixed lane width, and this means that if I go into the settings where I can set the lane width, I will be able to modify that. So here in the properties, you see those settings. First of all, I can turn on or off the display of an entry or of the entry or the exit part of my design. So there could be roundabouts where you have entry only or exit only. Around highways, that's a common thing. So with that, you can turn on or off the entry lane or the exit lane. So the top one is the entry side, the bottom one, the bottom row here is the exit side. I can then define the number of lanes by using these arrows. So I can introduce 2 lanes entering the roundabout, and this automatically introduced a dual lane setup on the circulatory as well. I could also add in a second lane to the exit. So 2 lanes coming in, 2 lanes coming out. However, I would like to keep this to be a single lane alignment, a single lane roundabout leg. And then I can go in and click on the configure entry path radii and offset, where this is, if I zoom out a little bit, you see that the vehicle path, the center line of the vehicle path I'm using as a reference is now 24.38 meter. This came from my design guideline. I can change that. I can go in and change this to a little bit sharper, 20 meter radius, and the lane width I can change it to 3.5 meter. Okay, so now this follows a 20 meter radius, and this is measured up here to be 3.5 meter. In the entry area, obviously this is a wider distance, a wider lane width, because it helps the vehicle to get in the roundabout, and the vehicle when turns, it has a wider lane requirement. Okay, I can also do the same thing for the exit, and I'm going to change this to 30 meter, 3.5 meter width. Now, how can I resolve this conflict here, this kink? I could create a bypass. So below here we have bypass lanes, and basically have 2 kinds of bypasses: a free flow and a partial. So the free flow will create a bypass lane like this, where you have one single control on how much would you like to position this bypass lane away from the edge of the inscribed circle. If I change this to 3 meters, it's going to be closer. If I go back, change this to 9 meters, it's going to be quite wide away from the roundabout. Okay, so this is the free flow bypass. Then you also have a possibility to define a partial bypass. Same setting, but this now controls the overlap between those two. So if I change this to 2 meters, there's basically an extra wide area where my vehicles can turn, but they're going to turn by slightly approaching to the circulatory roadway. So this is your design decision. If you want to have a less overlap, then maybe we change it to 1 meter. Then it is like this. If you want to have a more channelized vehicle flow or maneuver, then maybe we create a solution like this. And there is a little glitch with the crosswalks, which later on we will be able to correct them. So I'm just going to use a partial one, probably 1.5 meter overlap. Okay. We also see that we have a similar issue on this side of the roundabout, where I'm not sure if I would like to add a bypass. So if I select this, click this leg, I will be able to edit this roundabout leg. I can go in and select any of the roundabout legs. And here what I would like to do is to make another option or use another method to resolve this conflict. This warning, which is what we call the intermediate path radius. So this is going to create a nice, smooth, direct right turn path between these two lanes. And the path, I can define the radius. So instead of trying to create this S-curve maneuver, it will create this nice smooth arc. And this is going to be maybe 12 sharp 12 meter radius. The annotations overlap a little bit, but what you see is that we now have a very nice smooth arc, allowing vehicles to perform this right turn directly. And these settings now stay the same. So if I go in and for whatever reason modify the roundabout, as you see, it's going to be adopted to the new area as well. So I have other warning messages here, and this is more of a criteria set which you can turn on or off to allow users to focus more on the engineering aspect of the roundabout. In the design guidelines, we do have